A large crowd packed the West Hawaii Civic Center on Wednesday. The majority of them were there to voice their disapproval of a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service proposal to create critical habitat for 3 species in North Kona. The federal agency was conducting a public hearing on its draft economic analysis for the new designations. In October of last year, the service released its proposal to list 15 species as endangered under the Endangered Species Act and to designate thousands of acres as critical habitat for one of the proposed plant species, Ko'oko'olau, and for 2 previously listed plant species, Hi'uhi and Wahine nohokula, that do not have designated critical habitat on the Big Island. The areas proposed as critical habitat include 7 units totaling approximately 18,766 acres. All 3 species co-occur in the same lowland dry ecosystems. The proposed critical habitat is both occupied and unoccupied by 3 species. A look at the map shows where these units are located. The biggest by far is Unit 10 and Unit 31 in the Pu'u'anahulu area, a large western portion of what is under consideration of exclusion, in this case 2,834 acres associated with Kamehameha schools. Unit 32, which surrounds Waikoloa Village. Unit 33, just north of Ka'iminani Drive, excludes 502 acres associated with Palamanui Global Holdings, LLC, but includes parts of the West Hawaii Community College site. This unit also includes Hawaiian homelands, for which there could be major impacts. According to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, setting aside the service recommends 50 to 150 acres within the 91-acre area overlapping Unit 31 would jeopardize their plans for developing 400 residential homestead units and detract from their overall mission. Unit 34 straddles Hinalani Street and includes the 3rd phase of the Anike'ohokalole Highway project. It contains another exclusion for 630 acres associated with the Kaloko Makai development and 47 acres associated with Lanihau properties. Across the Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway is Unit 36, on top of the lava fields Mauka of Kaloko Honokohau National Historical Park. And probably the most controversial unit, Unit 35, right smack over the Kealakehe area, which is leading Kona as the center of urban development. This unit envelops the planned state judiciary complex and the planned regional park, also Forest City's Kamakana Villages project, and more Hawaiian homelands, the villages of La'iopua, for which there are 87 acres proposed for exclusion. It also includes a major chunk of Queen Liliuokalani Trust land, the entity that organized the filming of this hearing. They made their opinion known loud and clear.
A'ole. Not on the Queen's land. Never on our Queen's land.
In the end, it will be our children that will suffer the consequences of your decision.
The trust lands that fall within the proposed critical habitat land are the most valuable of the trust's portfolio of undeveloped land holdings and are expected to be the primary future source of revenue for expansion of the trust's programs.
But slowly and surely our numbers are dwindling, and decimated by poor health and scant education and many social problems. Our people, both young and old, are truly an endangered species themselves in our own shrinking critical habitat, and we can ill afford to have the government deprive us of our land. And therefore we have proposed a long-term memorandum of agreement with the service under which we would set aside 53 acres of land as well as provide other conservation measures. We urge the service to work with the trust to reach such an agreement. We've worked well in the past, hope we can do so in the future.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed to designate over 300 acres of trust land in Kona as critical habitat for 3 species of plants, even though these plants do not exist on trust lands. This designation would devastate the financial future of the trust. I am here tonight on behalf of the trust to request the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service exclude trust lands from its critical habitat designation. and instead work with us to reach a mutually agreeable, cooperative understanding whereby both of our goals and missions are accomplished. Last year, over 1,500 orphans and 9,000 destitute children were direct beneficiaries of trust programs.
Her land is sacred. Her land is her special gift from God to set aside for the vision that the Queen had seen for our orphans.
We began eradicating alien invasive vegetation such as fountain grass, ikoa, Chinese violet, lantana, and others as early as 1999 during the World Indigenous Peoples Conference that was held here in Hilo, Hawaii. Over the years, this effort has been supported by charter schools, Kamehameha schools, public schools, and other community-based organizations statewide, as well as our own groups.
According to the draft analysis, the Trust has indicated a willingness to work cooperatively with the Federal Service on a conservation plan, and discussions between the Trust and the Service are currently underway. The Service says the designation of critical habitat does not affect land ownership or establish a refuge or preserve. Listed species and their habitat are protected by the Act whether or not they are in an area designated as critical habitat. In general, a critical habitat designation has no impact on private landowners taking action on their land that do not require federal funding permits. But many of these testifiers were not so trusting on Wednesday.
If our queen was here, what she would sing? I'm going to make it real short. She say, "Aale hike, aale pono." You go home, where you come from. Leave our people alone, leave our land alone.
Historically, as you know, the United States have held Queen Liliuokalani hostage in her own home. As history is repeating itself, this critical habitat designation of 302 acres is in a similar way holding her lands hostage again, because not only does this designation limit access to these lands, but it also limits the decisions of the lands entrusted to the trustees of the Queen Liliuokalani Trust. Essentially, her hopes and dreams for her beloved Hawaiian people will yet again be held hostage by the United States government.
You came in, you annexed our islands. We're an endangered species. I am an endangered species. Are you going to declare the spot around me endangered? Are you going to feed me, provide for me and my ohana? I don't think so. So leave us alone. Let us take care of the aina. Let us be the policemen of our own lands. We've lost enough already.